The story kicks off with those two school popular kids strutting down the hallway like they own the place, and everyone can't stop chattering about them. Suzyun, she's the big shot student council president. And there's this certified nerd named Kazuki, tagging along as her sidekick, also the vice president. Some folks just naturally become the center of attention. But our main man, Usato, well, he doesn't see himself that way. Usato's your regular Joe, thinks of himself as just an ordinary high school student. The most thrilling thing in his plain life is helping pigeon babies find their nest. Deep down, though, he secretly wishes for something extraordinary. Now, here's the kicker. It's raining cats and dogs, and Usato's caught without an umbrella. He thinks about snatching someone else's, but he's a good guy, or at least he likes to think he is. He doesn't want to kickstart a life of crime over an umbrella, so he lets the opportunity slide. Dumb move, because now he's stuck waiting in the rain for hours. Out of nowhere, Suzyun pops up. She tells him that all students have to scram. Let me tell you, Usato's so forgettable that he was ready to just run home soaking wet. But Suzyun isn't having it. She's thinking it would be bad for the student council's image to let him turn into a soggy loser right before their eyes. Then, Kazuki appears on the scene and lends Usato his extra umbrella. Usato thought Kazuki didn't even know he existed. But surprise, he's actually a nice guy. They suggest walking home together, and Suzyun thinks it's fate that they met. Usato, being a bit of a nerd, compares it to hitting the jackpot, walking home with two of the most popular kids in school. He almost blows it by saying everyone will be jealous of him, but luckily they didn't catch his cringe-worthy comment. Usato tells Kazuki that he didn't expect him to be so friendly because he usually sees him as a ladies' man. But Kazuki explains that he talks to the girls out of pity. Suzyun teases him, saying he prefers talking to boys anyway. Suzyun, on the other hand, seems even more out of reach for Usato. She's a straight-A student and a sports whiz. That only adds to Usato's admiration. And he mentions she's beautiful inside and out. Usato, playing the part of a clueless gossip reporter, then pops the big question, are they dating? After all, everyone in school is buzzing about it. The conversation gets awkward, but they clarify that they spend so much time together because they're on the student council. Usato blushes with embarrassment, realizing he shouldn't have asked such a dumb question. But Suzyun is cool about it. She'd rather they discuss it openly than gossip behind their backs. Suzyun explains that she feels like she doesn't belong in this world. And Usato was shocked. The two of them are totally opposite people, but he understands that feeling. They all stop when Suzyun and Kazuki hear bells ringing. The ringing gets louder and louder, but Usato doesn't hear a single thing. Just as Usato approaches the others, a magic circle appears on the ground, and he wonders if it's a gate to another world. Instead of being terrified, Suzyun looks like a psycho and wonders if Usato thinks they will find magic monsters and heroes in this other world. Usato is shocked that she's into that kind of stuff, but time is up, and they are taken away. Usato eventually wakes up and finds that they are sitting in front of a king. The boys are rightfully terrified and cautious, but something is wrong with Suzyun's brain as she only feels excitement. The king then introduces himself as Lloyd. Kazuki wants to skip the introductions, though, and demands to know why Lloyd brought them there. Lloyd keeps his calm and reveals that he is the king. Both of them are shocked by this, except for Suzyun, who is having the time of her life. Lloyd then reveals that they were summoned to be heroes, making all of Suzyun's dreams come true. 2 years ago, this world was attacked by the king of demons and his army. They managed to drive them off, but the demon lord's power has been growing. As a last resort, they called forth accomplished individuals from another world who can confront a demon lord using a forbidden ritual known as hero summoning. Usato tries to remind the excited Suzyun that they're having a serious conversation, and Kazuki goes all crazy. He doesn't care about heroes or demon lords and is just furious that they were summoned without consent, demanding that they get sent back to their world. The king explains that the hero summoning only works in one direction, so they can't go back. Kazuki still wants to go back to his family, but the king apologizes as they are desperate for help. Kazuki's whining marathon pushes the guards to finally quiet him down by threatening Usato to calm Kazuki down. The king shockingly bows before them and promises to find them a way back eventually, but he begs that these heroes help him in the meantime. Suzyun finally stops fangirling over being ice-skated and wonders why the king calls them heroes without knowing anything about them. A mage named Welsie explains that the hero summoning is designed to select accomplished individuals. She explains that hearing the bells ring before being summoned indicates that they are heroes. That's actually some pretty bad news for our boy Usato, though, as he was the only one that didn't hear ringing, and he wonders if he was brought by accident. Welsie then takes them to a crystal ball that measures their magical abilities. Kazuki wonders if Usato is really okay with this, but our boy is just fine since Welsie told him that he might be able to use magic even though he is not a hero. Kazuki thinks Usato should be more upset, but our boy isn't a whiny little dweeb like him, and he points out that they should try to be like Suzyun, who is overly positive in this situation. She is the first to be tested, and the color of the crystal indicates her affinity for thunder magic. As if that weren't amazing enough, she also has a ton of mana. Suzune couldn't be any happier. Now, it is Kazuki's turn. This guy barely touches the thing, and Welsie is amazed when the crystal turns white. It's light magic, and Suzune is certain that it means he can shoot laser beams out of his eyes. Or even better, he might be able to use swords made of light. Usato points out that Kazuki isn't a weirdo like her and probably has no clue what she is talking about, but she scolds him for having a sharp tongue. Suzune realizes that she likes his tongue that way, and Usato's perfect image of Suzune is getting ruined every time she talks. Well, Welsie explains that light magic is incredibly rare, and few people can use it. Light repels evil, so its power is unparalleled against demons. The bar has been set pretty high by the first two, but now it's our boy's turn. Usato hopes that he will at least have the tiniest bit of power, as this humble kid just hopes to help Suzune and Kazuki anyway. Usato is glad when his crystal actually changes color, and everyone thinks it's a soothing color. But a look at Welsie paints a totally different picture. She is shocked by this color change and instantly drags Usato away without saying a single thing. Welsie urgently takes him to the king and explains that the other two have great abilities. However, she is there about something more important. The king has a good chuckle as he jokes about Usato having an affinity for dark magic, but he is shut up when Welsie reveals that the crystal ball turned green. The guards are even shocked, and Welsie begins to finally say what that means. King Lloyd stops her, though, as he doesn't even want her to utter those words. Usato begins to wonder if his magic affinity is really that bad. Our boy just has to remain confused, though, as the king quickly demands that Usato be taken away from the castle as quickly as possible. They try to think of the safest place to send him, and Usato wonders if he's really that dangerous. He asks if anyone else has the same magic, and there just so happens to be another person. It's a certain girl, but the king doesn't even want her name to be spoken. Unfortunately for the king and his cowardice, this girl barges in, and everyone is terrified beyond belief. We find out that her name is Rose, and she wants to know if the heroes have been summoned. The king was really hoping that she took the day off, but Rose would never do such a thing. She questions if Usato was a hero, but King Lloyd explains that he's just some nerd that got teleported there by accident. The king desperately tries to hide the truth and tells her that Usato is superordinary. Rose asks for Usato's name, and she introduces herself to him as a captain of the kingdom's rescue team. But Usato feels that she is more like the type to take lives, not save them. Welsie interrupts them and offers to take Rose to the real heroes in the crystal room. Unfortunately, Usato is an idiot who can't read the room and asks the king what his green color crystal meant. Rose is still within hearing distance, so everyone is terrified by what's about to happen. Rose asks if his crystal is really green, and Usato confirms that his ball is green. Rose tells the king that she will be borrowing the boy. The king decides that he must act quickly and gently tells Welsie to get Usato away from her. Welsie uses some kind of bubble magic to quickly get him out of there, but Rose instantly takes off after him. Welsie sends our non-hero sky high, but Rose is able to get to him almost immediately. She is crazy powerful as she destroys the bubble and rapidly captures Usato. Everyone is left with their mouths open from shock like a bunch of guppy fish. Rose tells the king that she will turn the boy into a full-fledged healing magic user. Welsie can't handle what will happen moving forward, so she faints, and the king begs Rose to stop. He knows that she has been searching for other healing magic users, but he tries to explain that Usato was really dragged into this by accident. His useless words go completely ignored as the two are already gone. Back in the castle, Usato's useless new friends have just been sitting on their stupid hands this entire time, but they are shocked to hear that Usato was taken away. Welsie explains that his life is not going to be ended, but it's still really bad news. He was taken to the rescue team just beyond the castle town. Healing magic users are extremely rare, and the crazy lady that took him is one of them. She intends to train Usato as her subordinate. No matter how hard Suzune uses her dumb brain, she can't see how this is a problem. Luckily, Welsie explains it to her like she's a toddler and reveals that Rose's training methods are extremely unorthodox. At Rose's base, Rose explains that Usato only has the potential to become a healing magic user, which is why she brought him to the rescue team. This will be his new home, and she introduces him to her team. Usato is terrified of these intimidating individuals, and Rose instructs them to look after him. She tells them to be kind, but they appear rather bizarre and introduce themselves. Usato's imagination runs wild, fearing the worst and wondering if he's some sort of sacrifice to these strange people. Rose tries to reassure Usato and tells her team not to scare him, but she herself appears to be the most intimidating. Her team attempts to explain that they are being nice, but Usato doubts they understand the concept of kindness. Rose clarifies that while her team consists of tough-looking individuals, they are not healing magic users. There are 2 other healing magic users on the rescue team, but they usually work elsewhere. It's time to get down to business, and Rose explains that she will teach Usato how to use healing magic extensively. Usato remains in a constant state of disbelief, with every instinct telling him to steer clear of this eccentric group. He timidly asks Rose if he could learn from another teacher, but she disregards his request and informs him that training will commence tomorrow. She instructs one of her subordinates, Tong, to allow Usato to stay in his room and advises them to have dinner and rest. After Rose leaves, her team delivers a harsh reality check to Usato, informing him that he's in a difficult situation. Rose will be personally training him, and it won't be easy. They even suggest that facing hell might be the least of his worries, and they share a good laugh. That night, Usato contemplates what lies ahead. Despite his initial fears, he begins to feel a glimmer of optimism, believing that things might turn out okay. However, uncertainty lingers, as even Rose herself doesn't seem to know what the future holds. The next morning, Usato wakes up and it hits him that he's actually in a different world, not just dreaming. One of the guys informs him that he has visitors. He goes out to meet Kazuki and Suzune, who are glad to see he's okay. Usato says sorry for making them worry and reassures them he's still kicking. Then he remembers Rose and her training, which starts today, and he's not so sure about surviving it. Kazuki and Suzune are taken aback by the idea of Usato's tough training. Kazuki is ready, though, thinking it's a chance to do something worthwhile. Suzune admires his determination and shares they're starting their training too. Usato's curious about their hero training, mainly because he thinks their costumes are cool. Suzune finds it funny, but Kazuki appreciates Usato's compliment, saying it's helped him make up his mind. Usato's a bit puzzled, but Kazuki tells Suzune he'll give his all in this new world. As they leave, Usato reflects on how Kazuki's struggling to fit into the hero role, while Suzune seems more at ease since this adventure is what she wanted. Thinking about this, Usato silently vows to be of help to them in the future. Just then, Rose appears, asking if the heroes have left. Usato, slightly overwhelmed, doesn't answer right away. Rose checks if they had a good chat, and Usato, trying to act cool, thanks her for caring. Rose clarifies that Usato isn't trapped and can hang out with his friends whenever he's not training. Grateful, Usato gets a diary from her to jot down his training and thoughts. She tells him they'll start training after breakfast. Usato's first day of training turns out to be chill, focused on relaxing and concentrating. He feels a strange sensation in his chest, and Rose explains it's magic. She plans to teach him to control and use it. Usato's confused but goes with it, trying to sense the magic. Next, Rose gives him a book to read. Usato doesn't think he can read it because it's in a foreign language, but surprisingly, he understands everything. Rose says it's thanks to a translation spell everyone gets when they're summoned here. Using pictures in the book, Rose points out where they are and where the demons are. Usato realizes they're not far from each other, and Rose mentions Linger as the demon's main target. She encourages Usato to read up on the world nations, races, and demons. Usato starts reading, finding this part of the training pretty easy. On his second day of training, Usato's experience shifts dramatically when Rose makes him run relentlessly, a stark contrast to the magical focus of the first day. By the third day, the running becomes so intense that Usato's legs give out. He collapses, but Rose, angry at his resting, uses healing magic on his legs. Usato initially complains about the pain, but then realizes he isn't hurting at all. Rose scolds him and tells him she's healed his muscle soreness, so he must keep running. Despite his exhaustion, Usato resumes running, fearing Rose's threat to revive him even if he dies, just to continue the training. Feeling overwhelmed, Usato finds solace in writing in his diary to express his frustration. On the fourth day, he joins the other squad members for training. However, the bandits mock him, and even Rose adds to the insults, saying it's part of military training. Usato mentally plans his revenge, venting his feelings in his diary. Despite his continued efforts on the 5th and 6th days, Rose still berates him for being slow. Exhausted, Usato collapses to the ground and once again turns to his diary for comfort. However, as he tries to stand, he notices his hand glowing with what seems like healing magic, leaving him puzzled about its activation. The 7th day brings a new level of harshness. After running to the point of exhaustion, Rose uses Usato as a punching bag. Approaching him, she ominously declares that the more he hates her, the tougher she will be. Usato is horrified, realizing she might have read his diary. He doubts she can read Japanese, but her actions suggest otherwise. She then physically lifts him and tosses him, commanding him to run again. Mid-air, Usato silently vows to rename her as the muscle-headed demon gorilla in his diary. Days 8 and 9 follow the same grueling routine, running until he can't anymore, enduring Rose's physical training, and repeating it all day long. As time passes, Usato, without realizing it, starts to heal himself whenever he gets injured. He soon discovers that he's using healing magic effortlessly, not feeling any pain or injuries. He understands that he's not using the magic because he needs to, but rather it's become second nature to him. Motivated by this realization, Usato begins to run again on his own initiative. On the 10th day, things start to change. With his newfound mastery of magic, Usato can run without tiring. But deep down, he still doubts his ability to assist Kazuki and Suzume, given that he can only run. He refrains from questioning Rose, fearing her harsh response. However, Rose pushes him further, ordering him to complete 30 more laps at a faster pace. Frustrated but determined, Usato vows to finish the training and prove himself. But the challenge escalates the next day when Rose adds 1,000 push-ups to his routine. Usato relies on his healing magic to endure the strain, ensuring his body can withstand the rigorous exercise. Rose then questions Usato if he understands the purpose of this intense physical training. Before he can answer, she clarifies that it's to enable him to escape enemies on the battlefield and, more importantly, to swiftly rescue fallen comrades. The revelation surprises Usato, but Rose commands him to continue his push-ups. Usato carries on with his training. Noticing that Rose doesn't yell at him as before, he feels he should be relieved, but instead, he's unnerved by the change. On the 12th day, Usato spends the morning running and the afternoon doing push-ups. He feels his body getting lighter, and Rose, noticing this progress, adds weights to his running the next day. His training intensifies, and by the 14th day, Usato finds that his lunch has been stolen. He confronts the squad, and Tong cheekily admits to enjoying his meal. Angered, Usato throws water and tries to punch Tong, who effortlessly dodges and reminds him that internal fights are not allowed. Tong runs off, laughing, with Usato pursuing him effortlessly, even with the added weights. During the chase, Usato has a moment of self-awareness, realizing he's adapting to the harsh training and complaining less, almost as if he's being brainwashed. On the 21st day, Kazuki and Suzume, along with a princess and a knight, come to visit Usato. They're stunned to find Usato doing push-ups with Rose sitting atop a large rock on his back. Rose criticizes him for being too slow but encourages him not to give up. Usato, showing newfound confidence, insists he won't stop and even boldly claims the task is too easy since Rose is light. Rose, amused by Usato's response, hops off and adds another rock to increase the challenge. Despite his immediate regret, Usato perseveres, using his healing magic to sustain himself. Rose even starts to admire his grit, commenting that he's turning into the kind of guy she likes, hinting she might take him along with her sooner than planned. Kazuki and Suzume are amazed at the tough training Usato is undergoing. Suzume, impressed, can't help but drool over Usato's developed muscles. However, the knight gets furious, confronting Rose about her extreme training methods. He accuses her of trying to break Usato, but Rose coolly tells him to let her go. The knight persists, but Rose, grabbing his hand, asserts that she has her way of training Usato to become her right-hand man. The knight and Usato are both taken aback by her statement. Rose explains that Usato is a valuable asset because of his resilience and refusal to quit, traits she greatly admires. Usato, however, is concerned that the knight might intensify his training. Rose then instructs Usato to take a lunch break. The knight requests Kazuki and Suzume to look after the princess while he discusses matters with Rose privately. They leave, and the knight voices his displeasure to Rose about the king's order to re-enlist her, despite his objection. Rose refuses to return, citing the loss of one of her eyes. Resting under a tree, Usato learns that the man with them is Siglis, the kingdom's strongest knight and the trainer of Kazuki and Suzume in swordsmanship. Usato is impressed by this but turns to the princess, inquiring about her identity. After she introduces herself, he apologizes for any rudeness. The princess encourages Usato to be at ease around her. Suzume teases Kazuki for reacting similarly earlier. Kazuki then asks Usato if his training is always as intense as they witnessed. Usato casually remarks that today's session was relatively easy and inquires about their training. Kazuki shares that their training is tough, detailing how Siglis instructs them in swordsmanship and Welsi teaches them magic, always mindful of their physical and mental states. Usato thinks their training approach sounds normal, but notes that Rose operates differently. When Kazuki apologizes, Usato is puzzled and reaches for more pie. This moment allows Suzume to admire Usato's muscles. Usato feels shy, but Suzume is captivated by his abs, and even the princess can't help her curiosity. Kazuki continues, expressing his concern that Usato seemed to struggle with his training. Usato admits it was tough at first and he wanted to escape, but now he's settled in. His companions grow curious, and Usato explains that while Rose intimidates him, he no longer feels the urge to run away. Instead, he finds enjoyment in the training and his new life. Suzyun is impressed that Usato has already found his place in this new world, but Usato just calls it stubbornness. He shows off his healing magic, saying that since they'll be fighting as heroes, he wants to contribute too. Suzyun flirts, asking Usato to save her when she's in trouble. However, Usato teases her, saying it's too late for her to act like a normal girl. She gets upset, but even the princess agrees with Usato. Suddenly, Tong shows up, claiming he has Usato's lunch. Usato, annoyed, confronts Tong with a stern face, questioning his cheerful attitude despite stealing his lunch. Tong, unfazed, advises Usato to let go of the past. Usato, still upset about his lunch, lunges at Tong, and they start fighting. Their brawl scares the princess, but Kazuki reassures her, saying this seems normal here. Suzyun agrees, noting Usato is adapting to this world faster than they did. This inspires Kazuki to return to the castle for more training. After the fight, Usato and Tong are both bruised, with no clear winner. That night, as Usato relaxes in a bath, he realizes his body has changed from the rigorous training and healing. He reflects on Rose's advice to run fast on the battlefield and wonders if he's up to the challenge. The next day, Rose hands Usato a bag and says they're going outside. The bandits look worried, realizing something significant is about to happen. Usato is confused but follows Rose to the castle gate. The guard, intimidated by Rose, quickly opens the gate. They walk for hours, reaching a cliff overlooking the darkness of Linger Forest, known for its dangerous monsters. Rose orders Usato to kill a grand grizzly and only return home afterward. Usato protests, pointing out that such a monster is usually the strongest after 100 years and he doesn't know how to fight. Rose, irritated, throws him into the forest regardless. Usato is falling from the sky, fearing he won't survive the fall. Miraculously, his body starts glowing with healing magic. Finding inner strength and determination to survive, Usato uses his healing powers to brace for the impact. He is astonished to find himself alive after the fall and quickly heals his injuries, remembering Rose's instructions that he must complete a task before returning. Trying to stay positive, Usato tells himself the task shouldn't be too difficult since it involves dealing with a 2-meter-tall bear. However, he's shocked when the bear, much larger and more intimidating than he expected, appears behind him. Usato initially thinks he can outrun the bear, but soon realizes the bear matches his speed. Reminding himself of the grueling training he underwent with Rose, Usato faces the bear, comparing it to a rabid Winnie the Pooh. But to his dismay, the bear has reinforcements. Usato flees, criticizing the bears for their unfair tactics. Hearing a waterfall nearby, he jumps into it to escape, forcing the bears to abandon the chase. Alone and with limited resources, a few rations, a canteen, and a knife, Usato wishes Rose had given him more useful survival tools, like something to start a fire. The task of defeating a grand grizzly seems increasingly daunting, but he resolves to worry about it tomorrow, grateful to have survived his first day in the wild. Usato spends the night in a pile of leaves, and the next day, he sets out to learn more about the grand grizzly. He finds scratch marks on a tree and prepares for a confrontation, only to discover a small, injured rabbit-like monster. After healing it, Usato advises the creature to be more cautious. As Usato continues his hunt, the rabbit follows him. He tries to discourage the rabbit from accompanying him, fearing for its safety, but the rabbit persists. Usato starts to suspect the rabbit might be leading him to the grand grizzly and decides to follow it, ultimately being led right to the bears. Usato decides to secretly observe the grizzly bears, and notices they seem like a family. Taking a break, he reluctantly drinks some unclean water, and is surprised to find the bunny still with him. As he continues his surveillance, he begins to find the blue grizzly and his bunny companion endearing, appreciating life in the forest. However, this pleasant feeling is short-lived as the water he drank severely upsets his stomach. His healing magic struggles to alleviate the symptoms, making Usato realize he's been poisoned. The next day, the bunny shows him a source of clean water, which tastes great. But the bunny seems distressed, sensing a dangerous monster approaching. Usato realizes the approaching creature must be formidable, as even the grand grizzly didn't scare the bunny. To his horror, a giant snake emerges, exuding a palpable sense of danger. Usato, terrified, notes that this snake is unlike anything described in his book and decides to avoid it at all costs. 4 days pass, and Usato can't shake a nagging unease. He knows he must defeat the grand grizzly to return home, but keeps postponing the confrontation. Usato knows he must eventually face the challenge of defeating the grand grizzly, so he resolves to do it the next day. However, when the next day arrives, the little rabbit, who has become his companion, doesn't want him to leave. Usato decides to stay with the rabbit, but only until the rain stops. Once the rain ceases, Usato is determined to carry out his mission, despite the rabbit's objections. He prepares himself for the confrontation with the bears, but to his shock, he discovers that the bears have already been killed. The bite marks on their bodies indicate that the giant snake was responsible. It becomes clear to Usato that the snake didn't kill the bears for food, but rather for its own amusement. Baby grizzly emerges from the rubble, desperately trying to awaken its motionless mother. Usato watches, filled with a mix of emotions. He detests losing, particularly when it involves Rose. The frustration of having his intended target, the grand grizzly, taken away by the giant snake intensifies his feelings. However, the sight that truly stirs his deepest hatred is the sight of the grieving cub, inconsolable in its loss. Determined to avenge the cub, Usato promises to seek retribution. We then see that the bear also gets motivated by Usato and decide to face the giant snake. Meanwhile, Usato's friends, concerned about his well-being, learn that he has been training in the forest for an extended period of 10 days. They are puzzled and somewhat alarmed by the length of his training, but their concerns are somewhat allayed by the fact that Rose, known for her rigorous and often unorthodox training methods, is in charge. Kazuki, one of Usato's friends, expresses worry, but Suzu maintains faith in Usato's abilities and resilience. She trusts that Rose wouldn't have assigned him such a task if he weren't prepared, and she confidently believes in his imminent return. Back in the forest, Usato rejuvenates himself with snacks and crafts a spear, gearing up for the inevitable confrontation with the snake. He enlists the help of the little rabbit, who had become his unlikely ally, to lead him to the snake. He instructs the rabbit to flee immediately after showing him the way. Their journey through the forest culminates in an encounter with the giant snake, but to Usato's dismay, he finds it attacking the little cub, which had not stayed safe as instructed. The snake's formidable appearance strikes fear, but Usato mentally fortifies himself by recalling that nothing, not even this monstrous snake, is more frightening than Rose. Usato engages the giant snake in a fierce battle. Initially, he thinks he has the upper hand, but the snake nearly devours him. Reacting quickly, Usato stabs the snake in the eye, temporarily blinding it on one side. This gives him a strategy to focus his attacks on the snake's blinded side. Despite his plan, the snake is incredibly quick and manages to bite Usato's arm, causing him immense pain. To Usato's dismay, he realizes the snake tricked him into attacking its blind spot, a tactic that infuriates him. Luckily, the arm the snake bit was holding his knife. After healing his arm just enough to move it, Usato stabs the snake from the inside of its mouth. The fight intensifies as Usato discovers he's been poisoned by the snake. Although the situation seems unfair, Usato has an advantage with his healing ability, a skill he honed after being poisoned by water earlier. He heals himself from within and gets ready to continue the fight. Just as the snake is about to deliver a potentially deadly tail swing, the little bear cub intervenes, aiding Usato in his fight. Working together seamlessly, the cub assists Usato in mounting an attack on the snake. Usato, driven by determination, lands a powerful punch and drives his spear deeper into the snake's head, with the cub's help in restraining it. Against all odds, they manage to defeat the snake. Usato is amazed by their victory, and the bond he's formed with the bear cub. He wants to heal the cub, but he's drained all his mana neutralizing the snake's venom and is unable to move. In a shocking twist, the snake revives, leaving Usato immobilized and vulnerable. The cub tries to protect him, but Usato urges it to flee for safety. As the snake prepares to strike Usato, he reflects on his life and blames Rose for his predicament, calling her a violent ogre. Rose dramatically appears from above and crushes the snake, berating it in anger. Usato is left wondering how Rose knew he needed help at that critical moment. Rose discloses that her pet rabbit Kikuro, who she instructed to keep an eye on Usato, informed her of his situation. Usato recounts how the injured rabbit sought his help, but Rose mocks him for being gullible, revealing Kikuro's injury was a ruse to gain his trust. Rose had been nearby the whole time, ready to intervene if necessary, but she preferred to let Usato handle things on his own. However, the appearance of the giant snake was unexpected. Rose explains that the snake, a creation of the Demon Lord's army, had survived an earlier encounter with Siglies. Surprisingly, the snake had defeated a Grand Grizzly, an opponent formidable enough to overpower elite troops. Usato is shocked by Rose's expectation that a rookie could defeat such a powerful creature. Rose clarifies she never anticipated Usato's victory. Her aim was to have him gain experience by fighting a stronger opponent. Intrigued by Usato's progress, she chose to observe his battle. Usato points out the danger he faced, supported by the affectionate little cub. Remembering the cub is now orphaned, Usato reassures it. Rose, acknowledging Usato's compassion, decides to take the bear with them, insisting it carry Usato, whom she mockingly calls a loser. As they prepare to leave, Usato is unnerved by Rose's intimidating nature, especially when she carries him and the bear. Rose admits she overheard Usato calling her an ogre and ominously warns him of a sleepless night ahead. Back home, Rose commends Usato for his exceptional performance, declaring him qualified to join her in battle. She acknowledges his resilience, physical capability, and mental strength, qualities not shared by the other two healers. Usato is puzzled by Rose's hint about a potential achievement, and is stunned when Rose reveals an imminent attack by the demon army. Elsewhere, the demon lord inquires about the invasion preparations for the Linger Kingdom. Amila, commander of the Third Army, confirms their readiness. This brings an end to our episode 1 to 3. If you enjoyed it, then don't forget to subscribe our channel for more anime recaps. Rose shared that Usato would be on the front lines with her, focusing on healing the wounded and serving in the vanguard. There were 2 other healers, each with different roles. Usato doubted his healing magic skills, but Rose encouraged him, noting they had some time for improvement. Usato wondered if he could really get better. Meanwhile, at the Demon Lord's place, he decided that Amila would lead the army in the upcoming battle against the Linger Kingdom. Despite their past successes, the Linger Kingdom had slipped away before, and Amila vowed to give her best effort. The demon doctor, Huruluk, teased Amila for being nervous in front of the Demon Lord, but she told him to focus on his work. Huruluk revealed his latest creation, the demon-made monster prototype 72, Baljanak, a highly venomous creature with a large body and sharp fangs. The previous prototype had escaped after being wounded by the enemy Siglies. Huruluk promised that this new prototype was much stronger. Amila hoped Baljanak would be effective against the troublesome individuals in the Linger Kingdom known as kidnappers. Kidnappers were non-combatants on the battlefield, rescuing and carrying away the injured while avoiding direct confrontation. Their leader was a healer named Rose, who infuriated Amila due to her exceptional fighting skills and her history with the Demon Lord. Unable to fight herself this time, Amila planned to send the Black Knight, the immortal mage of darkness, to deal with Rose. Back at Usato's home, he finally enjoyed the comfort of a bed. He fed his bear companion, Blurin, and shared some snacks with it. The little cub, a bit mischievous, took Usato's apple. Usato tried not to dwell on its cuteness, but eventually succumbed and fed it some fruit. When Rose arrived, she found amusement in Usato naming the bear Blurin. Blurin accidentally bit Usato's hand, but Rose assured that the kingdom had been informed about the bear, allowing them to keep it. However, Rose warned Blurin that he would have to earn his keep. The bear, terrified of Rose like everyone else, left Usato wondering about the tasks she would assign to Blurin. Shortly after, Rose revealed her training plan for Usato, and he found himself carrying Blurin. The simulation training involved Usato considering the bear as someone in need of rescue. Rose instructed him to run faster, emphasizing the urgency of rescuing the wounded quickly. Tong and another person, following Rose's instructions, appeared out of nowhere to chase Usato, simulating the battlefield. As Usato ran, others were waiting to ambush him. The challenge involved dodging special attacks, navigating obstacles, and enduring physical strain. After 4 hours of intense training, Usato started feeling strange and collapsed. Rose explained that he reached his endurance limit due to nervousness, fear, and impatience. To improve, he needed to get used to such situations and develop unwavering decisiveness in the face of fear. After healing him, Rose instructed Usato to spend the rest of the afternoon running around the castle town while carrying Blurin. People were shocked to see a blue bear, but they remained calm as they recognized Usato as part of the rescue team due to his clothes. The townsfolk were accustomed to the intimidating appearance of the rescue team members. While running, Blurin led Usato to fresh fruit called Peffel, but Usato realized he had no money. A merchant explained that people were calm around him because they recognized the rescue team members, even if they looked intimidating. The merchant gave them a Peffel for free, and Blurin eagerly grabbed it from Usato's hand. As they left, a girl named Amako showed interest in Usato from the rescue team. Usato, focused on visiting his friends, initially missed someone trying to get his attention. He eventually noticed Orga, a healer from the rescue team, and healed him. Orga, surprised to learn that Usato was summoned with the heroes, heard about Usato's busy training schedule causing him to almost forget his own origin. Orga was impressed that Usato could keep up with Rose's demanding training, a feat he found impossible for himself and his younger sister. Orga and his sister run a clinic in the city where they use their healing magic to aid the citizens. Despite being healers, Orga struggles to heal himself and is more adept at healing others. Still, they are part of the rescue team and work under Captain Rose in times of need. Usato was curious about what war would be like for them, and Orga explained that they, along with Tong and others, treat injured soldiers. Orga emphasized the danger the knights and heroes face on the front lines, making Usato think of his friends. Normally, injured soldiers left behind would have to wait for death, but having a rescue team allows them to be saved. Usato wondered if he could handle being on the vanguard. and Orga reassured him, stating that Rose wouldn't choose someone she didn't completely trust. Before leaving, Orga asked Usato not to harbor too much hatred toward Rose, explaining that she might come off as unpleasant, but she is just clumsy with people. Usato surprised Orga by revealing that he never hated Rose, even though he had unresolved issues with her. As Orga left, he expressed relief that Rose had finally found someone. Orga's sister, Yuru, arrived, and he shared that he met someone interesting, confident that Yuru would like him when they meet. At the castle, Usato was allowed entry with Blurin, thanks to Rose vouching for him. Usato reflected on the trust people seemed to place in Rose. In the castle, Usato encountered Suzyun, who was happy to see him but wondered about the blue creature on his back. Usato shared his forest adventure, but Suzyun was more interested in whether she could touch the bear. Usato allowed it, promising to heal her if Blurin bit her. Suzyun considered herself the heroine of their story, believing animals should love her, but Blurin amusingly slapped her hand away. Usato tried to console her, claiming Blurin was just shy, and encouraged her to try calling his name. Suzyun politely asks Blurin to be friends, but he playfully bites her hand instead. Usato's attempt to console her falls flat, suggesting her soul might be tainted. When Usato has Blurin release her, the mischievous creature starts nibbling on Usato's hand. Suzyun jokingly wonders if Usato's soul is tainted too. In their playful interaction, Usato notices Suzyun's roughed-up hands from intense training. Concerned, Usato reminds her about proper wound care and proceeds to heal her. Suzyun is amazed by his healing ability, and playfully wonders if Usato came just to see her. Usato clarifies that he came to visit his friends, though it's evident that wasn't the response Suzyun was hoping for. Suzyun shares that Kazuki, along with Siglis and others, has ventured outside the kingdom to gain experience fighting monsters. Siglis informs Kazuki about an impending demon lord attack, emphasizing the increased morale of the troops with heroes like him and Suzyun. Although Siglis is confident in their victory, Kazuki appears to have doubts but promises to give his best. Encountering monsters, they prepare for battle, and when Kazuki returns, it will be Suzyun's turn for experience. Usato can sense her excitement but wishes he could express his concern better. They share a light moment, and as Usato leaves, Suzyun reflects on the comfort he's found around her. Usato, running and contemplating his place in this world, acknowledges the preparations for the upcoming war and his desire to contribute. In his past world, he admired those who could do things he couldn't, but he's no longer that weak person. That night, Rose is pleased with Usato's training progress, but emphasizes the need for more. Usato stops her, expressing his initial fear of the battlefield but discovering a stronger feeling, the determination to fight without taking lives. He pledges to save anyone he can, aligning with the rescue team's mission to snatch up wounded soldiers and keep them alive. This realization marks the first moment Usato truly feels like part of the rescue team. The next morning, Rose reveals a message from the king, instructing Usato to join Suzyun's training outside the castle. Usato is surprised, and Suzyun appears more than ready for the challenge. This brings an end to our episode. If you enjoyed it, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.